Welcome to this presentation on estimation of capital formation. In this session, we will learn some concepts related to capital formation and the methodology being followed by National Accounts Division NSO MOSPI for estimation of the same. So, firstly let us have a look into the outline of this presentation. First of all, we will see some concepts and definitions of capital formation and asset boundary. Then we will see how this capital formation is estimated at the national level and different methods being followed for the same, such as by assets, by institutions, and by industry of use. We will also look into the concepts of GFCF, gross fixed capital formation, change in stock of inventories, CIIs, and valuables. These three add up to the gross capital formation of the country. To understand the concept of capital formation, we must understand a universal identity known as commodity balance identity, which is net availability equal to net use. This identity states that if we sum up all the available resources in an economic territory, it must equal to the sum of all the uses of resources of that territory. So here we can see that the net availability in a country can be defined as total output, that is GVO at market price, and the imports in the country. And the net use can be defined as the sum of IC, that is intermediate consumption, final consumption, capital formation, and exports by the country. Which means all the output and imports in the country can either be consumed as either intermediate consumption, which is goods and services used up in the course of production, or final consumption, that is goods and services used by household sector including NPISH or the government to satisfy individual or collective needs or wants, or it can be exported. The other remaining part is capital formation. Here PFC and GFC stand for private final consumption expenditure and government final consumption expenditure respectively. Hence, we can simply state the definition of capital formation by the commodity balance identity. Capital formation is the part of the economy's current output and imports which is not consumed or exported during the accounting period but set aside as addition to fixed assets and stock of capital goods. Here, capital goods is a durable good, one that does not quickly wear out, that is used in the production of goods or services. Now, we will see the concept of asset boundary, which includes all the assets in the country considered as economic assets and excludes the assets which are not considered as economic assets. Hence, as per system of National Accounts 2008, economic assets are store of value, money value or exchange value like the barter system, which satisfy these two conditions. First, over which ownership rights are enforced individually or collectively like by government or community, and second, from which economic benefits can be derived by holding it or using it in a production process. Thus, the assets excluded from the asset boundary are as follows. First, assets over which ownership rights cannot be established by individual or collectively. Those will not be considered as economic assets. For example, air, ocean, uncultivated forests. And the second, assets which cannot be used to derive economic benefits. Those should also not be taken as assets, as economic assets. For example, deposits of minerals which cannot be commercially exploited. It is important to mention here that household durables are also excluded from the asset boundary. Household durables are goods held for consumption by the household, and therefore these are excluded from asset boundary. For example, stock of food grain, clothing, etc., and household durables like refrigerators, furnitures, and automobiles. The reason for the exclusion of household durables is that though these assets have well defined ownership, but these are not used for productive purposes or economic benefits. Now we will look at the classification of all the assets. The assets can be classified into two categories: non-financial assets and financial assets. Financial assets like monetary gold, currency, deposits, shares, loans, insurance, etc. The non-financial assets can be further classified into two categories: produced assets and non-produced assets. Non-produced assets are like natural resources, contracts, leases and licenses, goodwill and marketing. The produced assets are further classified into three categories: fixed assets like furniture, building, machines and cars, inventories and valuables. Fixed assets are of broadly four types: dwellings, other building and structures, machinery and equipment, cultivated biological resources, and intellectual property products. Inventories include materials and supplies used for production process, work in progress, finished goods, military inventories, and goods for resale. For an economic asset to be considered as fixed asset, it must come under fixed asset boundary. The asset boundary for fixed assets consists of goods and services that are used in production for more than 1 year. Hence, there will be a few exclusions from the fixed asset boundary. Consumer durables are not treated as fixed assets as they are not used in production process. However, owner-occupied dwellings are exception to this case and are included within the fixed asset boundary. The owner-occupiers are treated as owners of unincorporated enterprises producing housing services for their own consumption. Hence, summarizing the facts mentioned so far, capital formation includes durable goods, the lifetime of which is 1 year or more, acquired by producers, not by household. Improvements and alteration of the durable goods which significantly extend the expected lifetime or productivity of assets. New construction and major improvements which extend the life period of the asset significantly. Reclamation and improvement of land, development and extension of timber tracts, orchards, plantations, etc. Breeding stocks, drought animals, dairy cattle, and the like. Mineral exploration, whether successful or not, form part of GFCF. In case of research and development, only successful research and development expenditure is considered as capital expenditure. The unsuccessful research and development is treated as intermediate consumption, IC. Now, let us look at the exclusions from capital formation. Purchase of durable goods by households for its own use are not treated as capital formation. Small, inexpensive tools such as hammers and screwdrivers are also not considered as capital formation. Regular maintenance and repairs to keep fixed assets in working condition is treated as intermediate consumption. However, major overhaul and renovation that enhance the efficiency or capacity or prolong the life of an asset is considered as capital formation. Now we will see how the capital formation is estimated at the national level. Capital formation consists of three parts: gross fixed capital formation, that is GFCF, change in inventories, that is CII, and acquisition less disposals of valuables. Now we will look at these three parts one by one. First is GFCF, gross fixed capital formation. GFCF includes the acquisition less disposal of fixed assets in the country. Cost of ownership transfer of assets like registration fees and all is also considered as GFCF. Second part of capital formation is CII, that is change in inventories. Enterprises have stocks of inventories at the beginning and end of an accounting period. For example, for the accounting period 2019-20, 31st March 2020 will be the end of the period and 1st April 2019 will be the beginning. The difference between the stocks at the end and at the beginning of the accounting period is called change in stocks of inventories. These inventories consist of unused raw materials, inventories, material and supplies, unsold finished goods, goods for sale with the traders, goods for resale, work in progress, for example, uncompleted assets, partially completed film productions and software, etc. The third part of capital formation is acquisition less disposal of valuables. The valuables can be defined as following. Valuables include precious metals and stones, antiques and other art objects and other valuables. Valuables are held as a store of value. Valuables do not deteriorate over time under normal conditions. For example, precious stones and metals such as diamonds, non-monetary gold, platinum, silver, etc., held by any unit including enterprises, provided that they are not intended to be used as intermediate inputs into processes of production. Paintings, sculptures, etc., recognized as works of art and antiques. Other valuables such as jewelry fashioned out of precious stones and metals and collections. Now, to measure the valuable part of the capital formation, the following formula is used. Net availability of valuables is defined as total production of valuables in the country plus imports from other countries minus export to other countries. One point to mention here is that monetary gold is not treated as valuables. Monetary gold is the gold held by the monetary authorities, usually central banks, as part of the official reserves of a country or by international financial institutions such as the IMF. The estimates of capital formation at national level are compiled by following three methods. Savings plus net capital inflow from abroad, that is the total savings in the country which can be used as finances for capital formation, and the net capital inflow from abroad. Number 2, by type of assets and by type of institution sectors. And number 3, by industry of use. The second and third parts will be discussed in the coming slides. Estimates obtained from these methods will not exactly be same, and the estimates compiled from method 1, that is financing side, is treated as firmer estimate. To estimate the capital formation by industry of use, we find the value of assets used in the following industries: agriculture, forestry and logging and fishing, electricity, gas and water supply, construction, trade, repair, hotel and restaurants, transport, storage, communication and services related to broadcasting, financial services, real estate, ownership of dwellings and professional services, public administration and defense, other services and manufacturing. Now, We will look at the estimation of capital formation by type of assets and by type of institutions. Broadly, there are four types of asset groups defined for national accounts as per SNA 2008. DOBS, that is dwelling, other buildings and structures; M&D, that is machinery and equipment; CBR, that is cultivated biological resources; and IPP, that is intellectual property products. DOBS is further categorized into two parts, Pakka and Kacha. For the estimation of capital formation of Pakka DOBS and machinery and equipment, the commodity flow method is followed to arrive at the total figure. For the other asset groups, expenditure approach is followed. Now these four type of asset groups contain the assets as explained in this slide. Dwellings, other buildings and structures contain residential and non-residential building, roads and bridges and other construction works. Machinery and equipment are of four types: non-electrical, electrical, transport equipment and others. Cultivated biological resources comprises of plantation crops and orchards, and animal resources, livestock. Intellectual property products IPP contains research and development, mineral exploration and evaluation, computer software and databases and others. Now we will look at the estimation of capital formation for all the asset groups one by one. First asset group is DOBS, dwelling, other building and structures. As already explained, DOBS are of two types, Pakka and Kacha. For estimating the capital formation for Pakka DOBS, the construction materials are used. It is estimated using commodity flow approach, that is by keeping track of the total construction materials used in country from their source. Kacha DOBS contains structures such as wells, field drains, Kacha bridges, developing rural roads, etc. The capital formation for Kacha DOBS is estimated using expenditure approach. Now we will see the methodology for DOBS in detail. As already told, commodity flow approach is followed for estimation of capital formation by keeping track of 7 basic materials: cement and cement products, iron and steel, bricks and tiles, timber and roundwood, bitumen and bitumen products, glass and glass products, fixtures and fittings. According to a study done by CBRI, Central Building Research Institute, these 7 basic materials form 75.67% of total available supply of construction materials. Hence, from the value of basic materials, total available supply of construction materials can be derived. The value of other materials used in construction is derived by taking the other part, 24.33% of total available supply of construction materials. According to the same study, factor input is 55.04% of total value of construction materials. By taking sum of these 3 basic materials, other materials and factor input, we arrive at the total output for Pakka DOBS. Now we will discuss the Pakka DOBS output of various institutional sectors. These are the institutions involved in Pakka DOBS: general government, public non-financial corporations and public financial corporations, private non-financial corporations and private financial corporations, and household sector. The value of capital formation of general government, public non-financial corporations and public financial corporations is derived as capital outlay and repair and maintenance as obtained from the analysis of budget documents and annual reports of public companies. The value of capital formation of private non-financial corporations and private financial corporations is derived based on MCA 21 database provided by Ministry of Corporate Affairs, reports of private banks and insurance companies and NABARD. For the household sector, total GVO is derived by residual approach by subtracting the GVO of the institutions defined above from the total GVO. Now we will see the methodology for the second part of DOBS, that is Kacha DOBS. Kacha DOBS are the labor intensive construction works. Measurement or tracking of flows of Kacha construction material is not possible as they are not produced in organized as well as in unorganized sector. Hence, the commodity flow method is not applicable here. The estimates are prepared using expenditure approach for all the institutions. The institutions involved in Kacha DOBS are as follows: general government, public non-financial corporations, and household sector. General government and public non-financial corporations. For these institutions, the estimates are derived by the same methodology as explained in Pakka DOBS. For household sector, the Kacha construction values are derived for RRB, that is rural residential buildings, URB, that is urban residential buildings, and NRB and OCW, that is non-residential buildings and other construction works. By using census data, All India Debt and Investment Survey, and inter-census growth for consequent years. Important point to note here is that only new construction works are capitalized and not repair and maintenance expenditure. So, the total GFCF from DOBS is derived by subtracting the repairs and maintenance parts derived from the respective data sources from the value of total output of DOBS, where the value of total output of DOBS is the sum of value of 7 basic materials, other materials not elsewhere classified, factor inputs, and the value of Kacha construction. Now, we will look into the estimation of capital formation for the next asset group, that is machinery and equipment. For M&E, commodity flow approach is used to arrive at the total figure of estimate of capital formation. Here is the methodology being followed to arrive at the total figure. Firstly, X factory value of capital goods produced in registered and unregistered manufacturing sector is obtained through ASI and NSS 67th round on unincorporated non-agricultural enterprises excluding construction. After that, we add the taxes levied on manufacture of goods in that value. The net imports of capital goods and import duties are also added along with trade and transport margins. Other than all the above things, machinery and equipment used in defense is also added to obtain the total GFCF from machinery and equipment. Now we will look at the institution-wise estimation of capital formation in machinery and equipment. These institutions are involved in machinery and equipment. For general government, public non-financial corporations and public financial corporations, the estimates are obtained as the capital outlay from analysis of budget documents and annual reports by expenditure approach. For private non-financial corporations and private financial corporations, the estimates are obtained based on MCA 21 database provided by Ministry of Corporate Affairs, annual reports of private banks, insurance companies, and NABARD. For household sector, the estimate is obtained by residual approach. We subtract the GVO of the institutions defined above from the total GVO obtained through commodity flow method. The next asset group is cultivated biological resources, that is CBR. Total GFCF in CBR asset for the country includes plantation, crops and orchards, and animal resources, livestock. For plantation, crops and orchards, the GFCF is obtained by capturing capital expenditure incurred on plantations using expenditure approach. For animal resources, increment in livestock for breeding, dairying, and drought animals is used as capital asset, and the GFCF in animal resources has been estimated using livestock census 2012. Now we will see how the capital formation for CBR is estimated by institutions. In plantation, crops and orchards, the following institutions are involved in capital formation. For general government, including autonomous bodies and public non-financial corporations, the estimates are obtained by budget documents or annual reports. For private non-financial corporate and private financial corporates, the estimates are obtained from MCA 21 database, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. The household sector estimates are obtained as residual from total capital expenditure on plantations. The total capital expenditure is obtained with the help of cost structure from NABARD and increment in area under cultivation from states. For animal resources livestock, the estimates for general government and public non-financial corporations are obtained from budget or annual reports. For private non-financial corporations, private financial corporations, the estimates are obtained using MCA 21 database, Ministry of Corporate Affairs. The household sector estimates are obtained as residual from total increment in livestock used as capital asset obtained from livestock census 2012. The last asset group is intellectual property products, that is IPP. The total GFCF in IPP asset for the country is estimated through expenditure approach. IPP includes research and development R&D, mineral exploration and evaluation, computer softwares and databases, and other IPP assets. The institutions involved in IPP are as follows. For general government, including autonomous bodies, public non-financial corporations, and public financial corporations, the estimates are obtained by analyzing budget or annual reports. For private non-financial corporations, private financial corporations, the MCA 21 database, Ministry of Corporate Affairs is used. In household sector, mainly software asset is used from NSS 67th round. Now, to arrive at the total GFCF, we add the estimates of GFCF from all the asset groups DOBS, MND, CBR, and IPP. As already told, GCF, gross capital formation, consists of GFCF, change in inventories, and valuables. We have covered GFCF and valuables so far. Now the remaining part is CII, that is change in inventories. CII is also estimated for the following institutions. For general government, public corporations, CII is estimated by budget documents and financial statements. For private corporations, MCA 21 database is used. For the estimation of CII in household sector, CIS estimates are not directly available. They are derived using various data sources. The main data sources for the same are NSS 67th round 2010-11, AIDS 2012-13, and Livestock Census 2012. For the estimation of GFCF at the state level, institutional sector approach may be followed by the states, just like at the national level. For all the four asset groups, DOBS, machinery and equipment, cultivated biological resources, CBR, IPP assets, institution-wise and asset-wise estimates can be prepared by the states as well with the methodologies explained in this presentation. I hope this presentation was helpful in understanding the concept of capital formation and the methodology adopted for estimation of the same. Thank you so much.